Welcome to Real Body Talk. I'm your host, Jennifer Kreatsoulas. Today's show takes on a topic that I think most can relate to, and that is control. I mean, who doesn't like to feel in control? I know I do sometimes, or probably more like most of the time. But today I want to talk specifically about controlling our bodies. What does it mean to control our bodies, control them as objects, and how does that influence our physical and mental health? To talk with me today on this topic of controlling our bodies, I invited Keli Laverty to join me on Real Body Talk. Keli is a leading dance movement therapist in the Philadelphia area and founder of Be Rooted. Welcome, Keli.
Thank you.
It is wonderful to have you today.
I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so excited to pick your brain and just get all your expertise on this topic. I know that you work with clients to help them feel more appreciative of their bodies, to be embodied. I know you're going to spend some time defining that for us later on in the show. But let's start off with this topic of control. So this phrase, controlling our bodies, what exactly does that mean?
I think it's interesting because we believe that we can control our bodies. And that stems from far back in history. Descartes kind of back in early centuries came out with this idea that our mind and body are separate and really medicalized our body, and it became this object in the early foundations of the medical field as something that we can control, something that should listen to our brain, and that, that it's separate and we could change it and form it and create what we want with it. We can fix it in ways. And that just really continued into our medical model today that, we go to a doctor to fix our body, to fix symptoms, not to really listen to what's going on with the body. And we've stopped seeing the body as a system. We are medical. The medical world is coming around a bit. There's some things like functional medicine and some different beliefs and practices that are coming much more back into the focus because the system of separate mind and body, it's not working.
So this medical model has kind of helped feed maybe the ideas that come out in our social world around that we can fix our bodies, that if we think it, we can change it, right? If we think hard enough and long enough and put enough energy into changing it, it'll somehow happen. But what are we actually after? What is it that we're trying to accomplish with this control?
That's a good question. I think it's a little bit of an illusion and an idealized image that we have been, in our culture, taught to want a certain type of image. And every 50 to 100 years, I think that form of what the body should take has shifted. And we can see in different, in the 70s era, the Twiggy image, or, the different images that became popular. But whatever that is, it's separate from what our body really is. And it's not listening to our genetics. It's not listening to the moment and the actual body we have. We are creating an image of something we believe we should have. And that conflict, that space in between those two, is what creates, I think, that desire, that energy around control and that fight, and the dissatisfaction that many people are feeling in their bodies. Yeah,
that's a great way to put it, that there's like a space between what's happening now in the moment, like you said, what's going on in our genetics, what's going on in our natural personal worlds, inner worlds, and the images that we are striving to emulate or mimic or, like connect with, because somehow achieving that earns us some status or validates our worth, or somehow we have a sense of security that we finally fit in. Right? In your practice, what do you see in terms of how are people going about controlling their bodies?
Well, I think it comes out in behaviors first. And it's that surface way of control through food, through movement, exercise, through work and stress and being busy. There's definitely a focus on doing today more than being, and that's driven in our world where we don't even know how to just sit anymore. We're always connected on our phone, and there's something happening, but it's all outside of us, and we're missing what's going on inside of us and just living in our bodies. Sometimes we shift from, I think in childhood, we start off in our bodies. We're born embodied. We don't know any different. And then we're taught to slowly stop listening to the body and start seeking outside validation for our needs and our wants. And then that slowly turns into these shoulds and these directions that we strive for. We're not taught how to listen to our guts anymore. You know, the metaphors, the language we use shifts. We're not listening to our guts, our intuition.
Right.
And we have this inner knowing that really is who we are. And that's in our bodies.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even just that word gut, right? Like for men and women, like this is an area of our bodies that we're taught to control.
Yeah.
Right. So this kind of use of language of like our gut instinct, right?
Yeah.
Like the seed of our intuition and not, this inner wisdom.
Yeah.
It's been kind of, it's been what's the word? Like transformed, but in a like really perverted way, kind of, right? Like that now we actually know you can't trust that.
Right.
You can't trust that. You have to control it.
Yeah.
Right. And you control it by, fad diets and exercising and weighing a certain amount and looking a certain way. The point you made about staying busy, I thought that was really interesting. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, I feel like we are taught to just go, go, go. And the art of stillness is a lost art. And yet that is where our body is not designed to go and never stop. Our body has two different parts of the nervous system. That one is for energy and fighting and, survival, and also excitement, the adrenaline, some of those, it's positive and negative things that is meant for. And then we have one for rest and recovery. And that's where our gut comes alive. That's where we digest. That's where we socialize. When we are in relationship with people, that nervous system is actually activated more. And we're in this going mode all the time, activating our fight-flight system, which really keeps us in more of a disconnected place. It doesn't give us an opportunity to just be rooted in ourselves or in relationship as well.
Yeah. I mean, your point of the go, go, go lifestyle, I mean, that is the kind of the valued, the preferred way of being. Like that's what we're trained. Yeah. That's how we,
we see success as that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. And we see success back to that image of body, maybe on Instagram in a certain image, that person must be really successful. And then we're comparing ourselves to images, things outside of ourselves, versus really trying to listen and tune inward.
Yes, yes. So the way you're describing this, it's like there's us, and then there's all these removals from us, right? Yeah. We just keep getting further and further away, right? And I wonder if somehow in just that, in that disconnect is that tension for control. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It's like trying to control to get there, but also there's this primal, like, something set off in our bodies. It's like, hey, come back here. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It's really interesting the way you're talking about it. What would you say are the kind of physical and mental health effects on being in a place of always trying to control one's body?
I think it brings about a lot of anxiety. And again, that nervous system, our stress state is activated We are more hypervigilant. We're always kind of going this inner outer battle of, am I doing things right? Am I, it just heightens that anxiety, and that in turn heightens our cortisol levels and really impacts a lot in our body physically and emotionally. And we're not even aware always of the emotions that are there. That's a whole nother piece, I think, of control that we haven't touched on.
Sure.
Is we believe we might be able to control emotions. And even in the way we parent, or we have been parented, or we talk to people, it'll be like, oh, don't feel that way, it's okay.
Right. Don't cry.
Don't cry. Stop that right now.
Yes.
And it's like
I think
the
I said
message.
that this morning, actually.
Yeah, I do it too, But just to start realizing it's the behaviors that we might, as parents, want to help manage and modulate, control. Some of us want to control, but to really view it as more of emotions come. They're reflected and they're an experience in our body that need to move. They need to be felt in order to be let go. We can't just let things go. And even in some of the really great practices that we might go for stress relief, yoga and movement, and we're taught to just breathe it out, let it go.
Right.
But we have to really be with those feelings and with our experience first. Yeah. And then the letting go is not in our control. That happens. Yeah. But what's in our control is being in the moment and living in our experience.
Yeah, like the emotions have to run their course.
Yeah.
For them to then be ready to be like
yeah,
right?
Yeah. And if if someone tells you not to think about something, and it's such a good example, all we do is think about that.
Right. Right.
And when you're really trying to think about something, like, oh, the words to a song, I'm like, what's the name of that? If you stress so much, I know I can never remember that in that moment. It's letting us be just right in the moment, maybe with whatever sparked that thought or curiosity, then those memories come, then that information is present. But we can't force things. And those are just small examples of how, no matter how hard we try, a lot of times we can't. We can't force our body to be where it's not. And we can't force ourselves to feel something that we don't feel.
Yeah, and when the nervous system is in that heightened state, like you were describing, it's really hard to have any clarity, mental clarity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the whole system is just ramped up.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And then there's many layers to that, what physiologically is happening that makes our thinking more difficult, and makes us more rigid sometimes in our thinking, and more tunnel vision. We can't see the whole picture always. Because we really, if you think about survival, when we're in that heightened state, that's what the body is going for. And it can't see, the whole picture. So a really great thing to do is just to stop.
What?
Right.
But if I stop, then what's going to happen?
Right. We're always focused on what's next in the future.
Yes.
But what's now is the way we really have to firmly plant our feet in the now. And that's how we're solid enough to move into what's next.
Yeah.
And we can usually see that there's so many options that you could go from one position. But if we're looking to the next step, the next thing, we're usually we see one way.
Yes. Wow. That's really neat. So can you then enlighten us to the work that you do and, guide viewers, who are at home saying, yeah, but this is me. Like, I completely relate to this. Like, I am always controlling something. I really have been I've spent years trying to control my body. Now what? How do I do it differently? What's the starting point for that?
Right. So I work with people using movement. I'm a dance movement therapist, which is basically psychotherapy, a counseling degree, but using movement to help people be embodied. So
and what does embodied mean?
Embodied really means to be in our bodies and to live through the body and to make shifts and move. Our bodies and minds are not separate, no matter how hard our world tries to tell us they are. It's one system. And so going from being on that outside, looking in as maybe we're this object, the body is an object and we're separate here, to realizing if I just get into the body and live from that place and pay attention to my senses and move and interact with my environment and relate to people, that will give us so much more intuition and information than we had before. And so that's the work I do. I work in relationship with people in an embodied way. So we're moving, we're breathing, we're not at a desk or a typical couch. I work out of a yoga space, and I have some upcoming, even virtual work that I'm doing, but it's all about helping people get into their bodies and reconnect into how to be. And I really believe we need to be embodied, and we need to nourish ourselves through listening to the body and through connections, and then really to then take that out into our community.
Can you walk us through an example or two of, so I'm a client and I'm really anxious and I'm having a lot of body image struggles.
Yeah.
And I'm terrified of moving, actually, because I feel so self-conscious.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with me? How are you going to fix me?
How am I going to fix you? I know. And a lot of, we go to see professionals, whether it's a doctor or a therapist, to be fixed. We want to be fixed. And sometimes the first step is understanding that this work, while I can structure it and while I can lead people and create the safety to be in your body, that's really where we would start, is just create ways to feel safe, to be in the room, and then maybe to be in your body, what that's like, but to know it's not going to be the straight line. It's not a one-size-fits-all practice. It's me helping to guide you to listen to your body and what it needs. And that can be a very big step for many people, like someone you described, someone who's just, the body is just feels literally like it's separate.
Right.
So learning small steps of even just taking a breath and finding where the strengths are in the body already. Many of us have experiences with our body that we just don't realize we're disconnected, but we move all day long. We breathe. We don't have to have the body doesn't have to work harder. It's already doing it. It's shifting our mindset and becoming more aware of how we live in the body or how we don't live in the body. So just bridging that gap and building a relationship, seeing how, if we just first met a stranger, you wouldn't just jump right in, you would start to get to know that stranger slowly and with kindness and compassion. Usually when we meet someone, we are very open-minded. So I think seeing your body as a new friend, someone that has the potential to get to know, and bringing with that compassion and kindness to yourself in this process. And then hopefully that can build into being comfortable in moving, not necessarily comfortable with what you're feeling, but comfortable exploring the body.
Right. So it's not about necessarily liking what you're experiencing. Right. It's about gaining the awareness and the skills or tools to be able to notice what you're feeling.
Yeah.
Right? Because as you said earlier, all the busyness numbs us out to an extent.
Yeah.
Right? All the being on devices numbs us out to an extent.
Yeah.
So how do we get to know ourselves again, like when we were babies?
Right.
Right? How do we get to... And that's a trust-building process, right? Because just to bring back like social messages into our conversation, we are fed, literally fed, so many confusing messages about how to take care of our bodies.
Yeah.
Right? Even the definition of health is so confusing.
Yeah.
right? And, you know, how to feed yourself, how to exercise, how much, when, right? What diet should you follow?
Right.
What products should you use on your face? What should you use in your hair? What should you know, what brands should you be buying? Like, and there's just, it is just like noise.
It's overwhelming.
It's so much noise. And so maybe you hook into one and you do that for a little while, and that removes you from center. And then you hook into another and you do that for a little while, and that removes you to center. And so the trust, like, there's so much trust building that has to happen to just let go or to stop relying on these externals and be like, oh, okay, that's what hunger feels like. Right? Now what?
Now what? And I think it's about exploring that inner-outer dynamic and kind of exploring what you're doing out here and what you value and what is working for you. And then taking it inside and going, okay, does this fit? Does this feel good? Does it feel nourishing? Does it feel healthy for me?
Right.
Do I feel like I'm very stuck in one way, or do I have some flexibility to move with that? Because I think signs of health for me are, can you move through the spectrum? Movement, which is what I base my work in, has many spectrums. You know, you can move really fast, you can move really slow, you can move really big and small, and we have our own definitions or judgments on what is good or bad, but all of it is important. We need to be able to be big at certain times, and then we need to be small at times. But in our world, those two are very polarized, and the idea of being big for women is a very negative connotation. And so taking up space in a movement session is really scary for a lot of people. Moving without control, you know, we can be very direct and have a plan with our movement, and a lot of exercise is very structured. So I'd say the difference between movement therapy and movement in the work I do, it's non-goal directed. We really aren't structuring for this end purpose. It's so much more process oriented and playful. And play in that it doesn't always have to be positive, but play is open to any direction. We don't have that plan. And so that can be a whole new way of moving. I have clients that come in really enjoying movement and feeling good about ways they move. They were dancers or gymnasts or CrossFitters. You know, you have a goal, you accomplish it. You know, athletes. And to get into a more open, free-form movement that's really non-goal specific, it's more about expression, is a whole different world. And yet that's how we start to live in our bodies, is to realize you can be expressive and be yourself and have your own authentic movement that comes from here.
So what you're saying is that, you know, and describing is about more of an empowering relationship with your body versus a controlling one.
Definitely.
So back to a question I asked earlier, and I know that you've shared this, but I want to make sure that it's really, people can really grasp it. They're sitting at home and thinking, where do I start? Obviously, call Keli, right?
Thanks.
Call Keli. But if they want to just start exploring this on their own, what are some safe, small ways they can do that?
I think two things: practice breathing and play. Those two foundations, if you think back to childhood, we just breathe, you know, we just were in the moment. And so ways to bring yourself right now would be to take a breath and tune into your heartbeat and tune into your breath and recognize that you're here. You're not in that next place that you're trying to get to, but just take a few moments to just be where you are. And practicing mindfulness, which, again, the languaging, that's my own issue, but it's really about non-judgment and taking out the expectations from the moment. So paying attention in your body, and And that can be very much like, very basic to try to, what are you feeling right now? What are you smelling when you take a breath? What are you hearing? And you could put on a song you like that just puts you right in the mood, right, to be present. You could dance around. That kind of goes to the second piece of play. See how you're playing in your day. How much play are you getting? And play is that idea of saying yes to the moment. When kids say, hey, want to play? Yeah, okay. And all that means is you're saying yes to the possibility of this moment and what could happen. And if you don't really know what that means, think of, just grab a small ball or a pillow or some object that you can kind of there's no purpose.
Right.
It's just, you're going to just play. And, think of a kid. Sometimes if you have a pet, that's it. That's a really great place to start, is just, be with your pet and maybe throw a ball to, if you have a dog or if you have a cat, just watch even just how the cat just kind of indulges in the moment.
Yeah.
And do that for yourself.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Play. Right? The question, how much play are you getting in your day?
Yeah.
That's a really profound question.
Yeah.
Right? So that's, I think, a really great place for people to start.
Yeah.
And then giving themselves permission to say yes to a little play and have a little freedom to breathe easier than the tension breath of control. Cool.
Yeah, and breath can be something that we can get into controlling, trying to control, but really just take a breath and feel the breath.
Yeah.
We breathe all day long, but how much do you really feel your breath?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Wonderful. Wonderful. This has been such a great conversation. I've learned so much from you. So if people want to get in touch with you, how can they find you?
Sure. They can go to Instagram.
Okay.
And I'm Keli Laverty, and Keli is KeliLaverty at Instagram. It's also KeliLaverty.com.
Great.
It's my website, Be Rooted, and there I offer ways to be embodied, be nourished, and be connected.
Awesome.
I love connecting with people and sharing movement. Yeah.
Thank you, Keli.
Yeah.
I'm going to really think about how I'm going to play today. So
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of Real Body Talk. I will see you soon.